In esports, most stars are remembered for what they win. They're praised for discipline, for long hours of practice, for saying the right thing after the match and nothing more.
Oh, but they combine Svenskar, they're not done yet!
And dead, they're not done at all. Sticks are getting trapped, but he gets himself a double kill. Oh
my goodness.
Afro just gets out as well, but Haunter.
Doublelift became unforgettable for something else entirely. The damage he did every time he opened his mouth. Long before he became an 8-time champion, Yiliang Doublelift Peng was North American League of Legends' original anti-hero. He didn't just want your trophy, he wanted your confidence, your pride, and your standing in the scene. He wanted to beat you, then make sure you felt it. He was loud, he was polarizing, he was mechanically elite.
Sam good ult there from Afro, but I don't think that's follow-up here. Who wants it? Dex Smoothie diving in as a Human Flake down onto 2. Bifrost taking damage in the front line, but Doublelift dishing it out. Svenskar does go down on Dushan. He's actually made his way in. Bjergsen is...
And he was impossible to ignore. But talk like that comes with a price. When you tell the whole world they are beneath you, every loss becomes a headline. Every mistake gets magnified. Peter's career became a non-stop pressure test. He went from being kicked out of his home as a teenager and couch surfing just to stay afloat, to becoming the defining face of Counter Logic Gaming, TSM, and Team Liquid. He won 8 domestic titles, dominated North America for years, and still carried the same painful scar at the end of it all. He never escaped Worlds groups. This is the story of one of esports' most arrogant icons, a player whose career was defined by greatness, controversy, heartbreak, and the crushing weight of always being expected to win. To understand why Doublelift became such a force on stage, you have to understand how hard he had to fight just to stay in the game. His confidence didn't come from comfort. It was forged in resistance. Peter grew up in Mission Viejo, California. His path to greatness was never smooth, and his home life was filled with intense friction. To his traditional immigrant parents, video games were not a career path. They were a waste of time, and that conflict eventually pushed him out of the house.
Get in the bush, but I don't want to die! Way too early, but he is able to solo out! On the Crepo! Pobelter's coming in. Doublelift said I had it, guys.
Before he ever became a marksman star, he was a terrifying support player in solo queue. His hyper-aggressive blitzcrank play caught the attention of Hotshot GG and helped him earn a spot on Counter Logic Gaming. His early rise was not clean or comfortable. He played at the Season 1 World Championship with Epic Gamer and finished 4th on the international stage, before eventually settling into the ADC role that would define the rest of his career. When he returned home after that early success, the situation collapsed. His parents gave him an ultimatum: stop gaming, go to a traditional university, or leave. Peter chose his dream. At 18, he was kicked out of his home with a backpack, a cheap laptop, and no safety net. He was effectively homeless. Stranded and desperate, he posted his story on Reddit, and Travis Gafford offered him a couch to sleep on. That cramped apartment became a kind of launch pad for the next version of Doublelift's career. He wasn't grinding just for rank or attention. He was fighting to survive while still trying to become a pro. That is why his confidence mattered. It wasn't just arrogance, it was armor. By the time Doublelift rejoined Counter Logic Gaming as a full-time ADC, he already carried himself like a star. He wasn't just another player on the roster, he was the main event. Alongside Choster, he formed the iconic Rush Hour bot lane. CLG became one of the defining pillars of early North American League.
Corruption catches out into Pobelter, takes a couple of autos. Ole comes in to save the day. The root color is called back by Doublelift to take a look at Impact in the middle of the team. Already taken out Breeze. K follows shortly, and Uniboy, you're running away from your base, mate.
Known for explosive play and a huge fan base, Doublelift's mechanics were far ahead of the era, and he had a special gift for making high-pressure moments look routine. That line changed everything. It made him a villain to some, a hero to others, and must-watch television to everyone else. Half the crowd tuned in, hoping he would dominate. The other half tuned in, hoping someone would finally shut him up. He understood the entertainment business better than most players ever do. If people care enough to hate you, they are still watching. For years, though, the results didn't fully match the talk. CLG was inconsistent. often unstable, and frequently let good positions slip away. Doublelift spent years carrying the burden of the empty trophy case meme. The community mocked him hard, and every failure added more fuel to the criticism. That's why the breakthrough in 2015 hit so hard. At the NALCS Summer Finals in a sold-out Madison Square Garden, CLG faced TSM. With the entire scene watching,
follow-up damage, a couple of stuns come in, they've got Bjergsen, and they shut him down with a 1600 damage crit.
Can they get double?
Low. Medios, another knockup, trades his life, but it does gets the GA. Double killing them all, kills everybody. They've got 3, Impact goes down, and A's for TSM.
Doublelift delivered a championship performance, highlighted by a Jinx pentakill that became one of the most replayed moments of his career. CLG swept TSM 3-0. The trash talk finally had a trophy behind it. The trophy case was no longer empty. You would think a historic championship would lock a player into an organization forever. In esports, though, loyalty is often the first thing to break. CLG removed Doublelift from the roster. The move shocked the entire scene because he wasn't just their star player. He was the identity of the team. But he didn't stay down for long. Within 24 hours, he made the move that turned the rivalry into a full-blown event. He joined TSM, CLG's biggest enemy. He was teaming up with Bjergsen, his fiercest individual rival, to create one of North America's most feared bot-side threats. The Jersey trash can reveal was pure theater.
Right now, the Scion charges forward, but it's going to be Scout with the flash into the multiple person CC. Damage coming down onto the health bars of Team Liquid, but Scout's the first one to fall. Impact going to be taken below half, but now Mako has to retreat. A 2-man stun from Scout.
And it worked because everyone understood exactly what it meant. On the map, the move was devastating. With Doublelift and Bjergsen leading the charge, TSM stormed through the 2016 summer split with a historic 17-1 record and crushed the playoffs to win the title. At that point, the pattern was obvious. If the scene threw pressure, betrayal, or disrespect at Doublelift, he didn't fold. He turned it into fuel and used it to build a bigger fire. By late 2017, Doublelift's journey took another massive turn. He signed with Team Liquid, an organization with the resources and ambition to build a completely new dynasty. Doublelift became the undisputed centerpiece. From 2018 through 2019, Team Liquid pulled off an unprecedented feat, winning 4 consecutive LCS titles. Doublelift was now actively adding to one of the most dominant stretches in North American history. He leaned right back into the trash talk, including the 2018 TSM is boosted shot at his old rival. He had evolved from a loud star into the most dominant domestic champion the region had seen in years. Then life hit. Just days before the 2018 Spring Grand Finals, horrific news broke back home in California. Doublelift's brother had attacked his parents, killing his mother and critically injuring his father. The esports scene went quiet in a way it rarely does. Everyone expected him to step away, but he chose to play. He walked onto that stage and refused to let the tragedy stop him from competing. Team Liquid swept 100 Thieves 3-0 to win the title, and the moment became bigger than a trophy celebration. At that point, it wasn't about trash talk or confidence. It was about carrying unbearable pain and still showing up. For all of his domestic dominance, there was one story Doublelift could never outrun: Worlds. He appeared at the World Championship 8 times and never made it out of groups. Not once. That statistic became the simplest and sharpest criticism of his legacy. No matter how much he dominated in North America, the biggest international stage never gave him the same outcome. The point isn't that he was a bad international player. He wasn't. He still had good moments and strong performances. The problem was the gap between his domestic dominance and the results he got at Worlds. That gap became one of the most painful tensions in league history. Moments like the infamous Lucian misplay against Samsung Galaxy in 2016 became part of the mythology because they symbolized how unforgiving the world stage could be. One misread, one bad step, one lost fight,
and the entire run could collapse in seconds. Every Worlds appearance became a test of whether the King of North America could finally break through. And every time, the wall held. By 2020, Doublelift had already built one of the most decorated careers in LCS history. He returned to TSM, won his 8th domestic title, and stepped away from competitive play later that year. But players like him never really disappear. The competitive pull stays in the background. In 2023, he made a short comeback with 100 Thieves, reunited with Bjergsen, and gave fans one more nostalgic run before the chapter closed again. By the end of the year, his competitive career was over for good, and he shifted fully into content creation. So what is the ultimate legacy of Yiliang Doublelift Peng? He was one of the first North American players to become a true star beyond the game itself. He weaponized trash talk in a way that made the entire scene more entertaining, but he also had the mechanics to make people take him seriously. He helped define the most important eras of CLG, TSM, and Team Liquid. His career was full of contradictions. He was a domestic giant and an international struggler, a loud villain and a deeply beloved icon, a player who looked untouchable in North America, yet vulnerable under the pressure of Worlds. That tension is why he still matters. He wasn't just a champion. He was the personality that made North American League of Legends feel alive.